So, you're working on a story and it started to feel boring to you. Obviously, that means it's terrible. You lost all your talent and you should abandon it forever, right? Well, I think that's what a lot of writers and aspiring writers like to tell themselves, or they start telling themselves. And it's also one of the fastest ways to never finish anything. This video, I want to challenge that idea, and I want to help you figure out if boring is a warning sign or something else. My name is Ryan, and I started this channel to help fiction writers, aspiring fiction writers, experienced fiction writers finish their stories, help them using whatever tools it takes without any guilt or pretending that the process is easy. I spent years struggling to finish any of my own stories until I started using modern technology to help me get past roadblocks that were preventing me from actually finishing anything. And if you've ever walked away from a story because it suddenly stopped exciting you, this video is for you. The first thing we need to do is define what we actually mean when we say boring. Because boring is not a diagnosis, it's a symptom. Are you bored because you've lost inspiration? The pacing feels off? A character stopped feeling right, stopped feeling alive? Or could it be because you've been staring at the same story for weeks and your brain is kind of fried? They're all very different problems and they require different responses. I think when writers hit this moment in the process, they often will make one of two mistakes. They give up too fast and assume boredom means that the idea is bad, so they quit without looking any closer, examining why they feel that way. Now, the second mistake is the exact opposite, which is they refuse to quit even if there could be a reason why they feel that way. It's an example of what's called the sunk cost fallacy. When somebody stays invested in something even when it clearly is not working, it's called the sunk cost fallacy. It's basically a refusal to quit on something because of the time invested in it, rather than acknowledging that maybe it's time to step back. And both are trapped. The real skill, I suppose you could call it, or trick maybe, is knowing which mistake you might be getting ready to commit or have committed. Because I want to be clear, sometimes walking away is the right move, okay? If you step back, evaluated the story honestly, and you can clearly see a premise that just is not exciting you anymore, a core conflict that is not working, or maybe it's simply that you aren't ready to write this story yet. Maybe these are signs that it's okay to just go ahead and set it aside for a while. That putting it in a maybe later folder isn't a failure, it's being discerning. But I think a lot of the time writers quit for the wrong reasons. They will quit without examining the story, examining their mental state, giving themselves any distance from the work. So I want you to ask yourself honestly, are you bored? Or maybe did you just read someone else's amazing book that you really loved and start subconsciously comparing what you're doing to what they did? Are you bored? Or are you mentally exhausted? Maybe you're overwhelmed. Maybe you've allowed fear to creep in, afraid that it won't live up to your expectations. Fatigue, comparing yourself to others, especially when you're involved in writing a story and you start comparing yourself to a finished, published work that probably went through multiple edit phases, these things have a good way of pretending to be a loss of interest. That's how they can start to feel. So what I recommend when your story starts to feel boring is the first thing you should do is just step away for a little. Not forever, not dramatically. I'm saying a day or two. Just take some time away from it. Do something fun. Play some games. Have some tea. Enjoy your life. And just think about anything and everything else except for that story for a little while. Then come back to it and ask yourself some questions. Primarily, why does this feel boring right now? Not, is the story bad? What specifically stopped working for you? And then try to find fixable problems. Pacing issues, a scene that no longer matters perhaps, a character that needs stronger motivations. Because those are craft problems, not failures. And then after you've done that, you've checked your mental state, examined the story honestly, and if you've still not identified a clear path forward, only then should you seriously consider putting a story in the maybe later folder. Because you won't be the same writer next year or the year after that. So if you want to try out a story that you've done some work on in the past, in the future, you put it in, you have a maybe later folder. Because maybe some stories are just waiting for a future version of you. Feeling bored with your story doesn't mean you failed. It just means that you've reached a part where the novelty has faded away, and sometimes that means that this is where craft begins and excitement falls to the side. But, as discussed, sometimes there are issues that can be fixed that can help continue making the story feel correct and feel exciting. And sometimes it's just not the right story right now. Learning how to move through those moments, that can be one of the biggest differences between a writer who just dreams and a writer who finishes. If this video has helped you, kind of rethink if you're how you're feeling about being stuck, especially if you are right now, go ahead and subscribe. I do videos like this fairly regularly. I make videos for writers who want to finish their stories without burning out or feeling guilty for using technology to help them when they're struggling. And if you got a story sitting in the maybe later type of folder somewhere on your computer, or maybe you put them, you write by hand and you put them in a box somewhere, let me know in the comments, because you're not alone. I think all writers go through that. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Next time.